talks. Can I request my colleague Rastogi to tell me if you can see me and hear me clearly?
Yes, Ramya, we are live. We can see you and hear you clearly.
Wonderful, wonderful. So welcome everybody, and I'm already seeing on the chat a lot of good mornings, or rather good evenings. Let me request you all that instead of just saying good evening, can you please tell us where you're from, which school and which location? And some people have already done that. Thank you so much. So yeah, let's see some schools and locations coming up now. So Madhuri Dayal from Mayur School, Noida, welcome to Centox. Rajani Venkat from Chennai Public School in Chennai. Vinay Kumar from Pathankot. We also have a few people joining us from outside India. Sonal Hitesh Ramaya from Indian School, Sohar in Oman. Garvit Gulia from Haryana. Anita Kosla from Hyderabad. We have some people joining us from Philippines. Welcome. Manju Singh from DPS Hyderabad. Ami Desai from Vedanshi Activities class in Gujarat. Nidhi from Shivnadar School, Faridabad. Madhulika from Varanasi. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to read all your names and schools, but welcome to everyone. I see someone from Nigeria. Welcome. So glad to see a few of our international participants as well. I see somebody from Madurai, from Chandigarh, from Jharkhand. Great. Also seeing a few more international people from Saudi Arabia, from Kenya. Welcome to all of you. So you can read each other's post on where different people are joining us from. And as always, wonderful to have a very diverse and distributed audience with us at Centox. I'm Ramya Venkatraman. I'm founder and CEO of Centa. And I have with me today a very eminent panel to discuss the question of what next after school, a question that is very top of mind for both parents and teachers who are dealing with either children or students, particularly in secondary school or middle school. So let me welcome Dr. Naushad Forbes. Dr. Naushad Forbes is the co-chairperson of Forbes Marshall, India's leading process and energy efficiency company. He's chair of Ananta Aspen Center and Center for Technology, Innovation and Economic Research. He's on the board of several educational institutions and public companies, and was also the president of CII, India's leading industry body, the Confederation of Indian Industry, during 2016 and 17. He writes a monthly column for Business Standard, and I think for many of us in India, particularly from the world of business, he's a very, very well-known name and face. So thank you so much, Dr. Forbes. A pleasure to be sharing this stage with you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Great to be with you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Joining us next is Dr. Ranjan Banerjee. So Dr. Ranjan Banerjee is the interim vice chancellor of Nayanta University, and Dr. Ranjan Banerjee is building Nayanta University with along with the other founding team members. I actually have a very special relationship with him, and I'm going to start with that. We are both alumni of IIM Calcutta, and I think mutually proud of our alma mater. So glad to have you here. And Dr. Ranjan Banerjee is, of course, a reputed academic who has been involved with BIT School of Management as founding dean, has been dean and professor at SPGen Institute of Management, has been the CEO of Renaissance Strategic Consultants, which work with several organizations, including academic ones. He's been professor at Great Lakes Institute of Management, so comes with a very, very rich background in academics, and now is building Nayanta University. Again, Dr. Ranjan Banerjee, wonderful to have you here, and thank you for joining us at St. Talks.
It's great to be with you. Thank you.
Great. Let me welcome our third panelist for the day. Yeah, great. Wonderful to have you, Ms. Aniha Brar. So Ms. Aniha Brar, our third panelist for the day, is the Dean of Students and Undergraduate Programs at Nayanta University, and therefore is also one of the founding team members of this university that is coming up. Again, Dr. Aniha Brar comes with a career of more than 24 years working with various organizations, and both academic and others, has been with Ashoka University. She has also been a writer, editor, and TV producer, and an instructor in academic writing. So, Ms. Aniha Brar, welcome, and really glad to have you with us here in this episode of St. Talks.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
So before we start the conversation, I just want to give the audience here a little bit of a view of why we are having this session. So St. Talks is a series primarily dedicated to teachers, as the regular participants are aware. And we've had more than 300 episodes of St. Talks, and it's an extremely popular channel among teachers. And the primary focus of St. Talks has been on competency building, where teachers get the opportunity to go deep into one topic every week, one competency theme every week. But from time to time, we also broaden St. Talks into saying that it's not only about competencies, it's also about other perspectives that teachers need to have. And from time to time, we broaden it to a parent audience as well, to say that it's about perspectives that teachers as well as parents may need to have jointly as they are partnering in the future of the student or the child. And today is one of those episodes where we have broadened the theme of St. Talks to saying what next after school, which, as I said, is one of the topics that is very top of mind for parents as well as teachers, particularly when children are in secondary school, sometimes even starting from middle school, and there is a lot of confusion, unclarity. Many of us as parents and teachers come from a very different world, and we are now having to guide students in a new world that we ourselves don't fully understand. So this St. Talks is dedicated towards having a conversation on this topic, and hearing from some of our eminent panelists on how to think about this. So with that, let me also request the audience to post on chat some of your topmost questions on this topic. And with that, I'm also just going to request that we close the good evenings for now, because with a large audience, the scroll is very fast and we end up missing the questions. So we will take it as wished from all of us to each other. Good evening, and would request that we now move to the content of this panel and start posting on chat some of your topmost questions on this theme. Let me start with one of my questions, and we'll open it up to the entire panel to begin with, which is that you all of you are eminent leaders in different fields. From your point of view, how is the topic and idea of leadership evolving in today's world? And with that in mind, and when we think about our students as future leaders, what is the kind of educational preparation you feel they need to be leaders in this new world during their secondary school, post-secondary, higher education? What is the kind of preparation they need? And would welcome any of our panelists to start with their opening thoughts on this.
Do you want to start, Ranjan? Do you want me to start? Do you want Anita to start? You're on mute, by the way.
I think you're on mute, Dr. Ranjan.
So Naushad, you could start and I can kind of.
Okay, sure. So I guess I'm not sure it's necessarily an aspect of what the world needs now in terms of leadership as what the world has always needed in terms of leadership. I mean, if you think about some of that, I'd say you want people who are public spirited. You want people who know what it is to be a good citizen. You want people who know what it is to be an effective contributor, who are passionate about what they do. So it's a combination of different things. Maybe there's an element now of uncertainty in the world. So you need people who can deal with whatever the world throws at them on a day-to-day basis, on a periodic basis. And what does it mean to be equipped to deal with what the world throws at you? Well, you need to be first, I think, comfortable with yourself. So you need to understand yourself and understand what you yourself are good at, what you're passionate about. Maybe even being clear on areas where you're not particularly strong and good. I find that very helpful for myself, that I know that there are some things that I'm quite comfortable and good at, and I know that there are many things that I'm not. And if there are some of those things that I have to deal with, then I want to get someone else in the room to help me deal with them, because otherwise I'll take a wrong call on that particular topic. So I think being self-aware is an element always, and that's been true through time, and it's true now. Maybe I'll add one more thing and then stop. So if you're self-aware, then you're sort of rooted. And then you need to also have some sense of the world around you and the ability to place whatever's happening in the world around you in some context. You might get it wrong, but that's okay, as long as you have the broad ability to take something that happens maybe in your own company, maybe something happens in geopolitics, maybe something happens in your community, in the place where you live, and to be able to place it in the context of, is this a one-off? Is this something that happens from time to time? Is this something that happens around the world quite frequently? So what's the context? Is this something we should be really worried about, proud of, that we should really be able to look at and say it should never happen again? So you need the ability to place context. And if you have that combination of self-awareness and context, then I think you have a sort of inbuilt moral compass that tells you what's good, what's not good, and how you need to deal with the world based on what it throws at you.
Very interesting, Dr. Forbes, and I think it's great that you've gone deep into the aspect of self-awareness and the role it plays in everything related to leadership and the different ways in which it can play out. So maybe Dr. Ranjan and Dr. Aniha, if you can add to
So
that?
let me build on, I think, very interesting themes of self-awareness, context, and moral compass. All of this, I think, is part of something that in education can make a difference. But if I were to take a broader look, when environments were more predictable, the so-called command and control models of leadership, which says a leader has to control, command, order, predict, as opposed to a leader has to align, create, empower. And this might sound very acronymish, but I think two or three different dimensions of this. One dimension of this, I think, is that leadership is about service. So leaders don't always have all the answers. Their job is to create the context for other people to find the answers. So we're moving away from a leader as somebody who knows all the answers to a leader as somebody who understands people, works with people, is able to work with diverse teams, brings the best out of diverse teams. So that's, and for that, of course, the leader has to be self-aware. Uh, Second is that if you look at the employee coming in, and this is reflective of the student coming in, we were parented differently from the way we have parented our children. We were parented in a relatively hierarchical way. We have brought up our children to be friends at a younger age. Now, when those children become employees in whatever sectors, they do not respect their bosses because their bosses are their bosses. Designations and power and hierarchy have to be earned. Therefore, this implies a more collaborative listening style of leadership. It also implies also the kind of problems that they are facing are multifaceted. They cannot be answered from the lens of any single discipline. And therefore, you need multiple lenses, you need flexible problem solving, but you need the ability to listen. And to me, fundamentally, I'll go back deeper into moral compass and talk about two values which I have found very important. One value would be that every human being deserves to be treated with respect, just as a human being. And the second is as a dimension that you can learn something from every human being you meet. And for a leader to believe in and practice both of these, you need leaders who are confident, but who are also humble. And that combination of confidence and humility, and maybe I'll close with a small story because I personally like stories. I recently was with a 12th standard girl who was a first generation learner who was showing me around her school. And the school talks about we create leaders. And maybe it was mischievous of me, but I asked her, your school talks about creating leaders. What does leadership mean to you? And she said, look, I was the first person from my family to go to a formal school at the 11th and 12th. Initially, people were wondering why you are leaving the village. Why is it worth it? Today, they realize I have knowledge. So many people in my family, including the elders, come and ask my opinion on things. So I have become a leader within my family and my community. So to me, the day you start taking responsibility for somebody else, this day you start thinking about making a difference to somebody else, the student starts making the transition from being a student in their mind to being a leader in their mind. Because the day you move from self-achievement to contribution for others and contribution to others, the leadership journey starts.
Wonderful. Very, very interesting, interesting thoughts, and not even going to try to summarize that because you put it so beautifully. Before we move to Aniha, I'm just going to, again, for the interest of the audience, welcome a few more people from different places. So Mariam Khan from Aryaman Vikram Birla Institute, Haldwani, welcome to you. The Meena M from NHIS Bangalore, welcome to you. Neetu Arora from DAV Amritsar. We have a couple of international participants from Ghana. Padmavati from Mednapatnam. Wonderful to see all of you here. So welcome to you again. And naturally, the people who write good evening without the school names and location names, you are also welcome, but will not be prioritized in my welcome. So let me, with that, move on to Aniha for your opening thoughts, and meanwhile, I'm requesting Rastogi to keep your first couple of poll questions ready so that we come to them. But Aniya, if you can share your opening thoughts on leadership and education in that context.
Ramya, actually, I don't think I have too much to add in terms of defining leadership to what Naushad and Ranjan have already done. I think one of the reasons we are working together is because we have an alignment on certain visions of leadership. I'll also perhaps be a bit of a maverick in this conversation and say that to me, a lot of the educational journey and a lot of how we are as young people or as parents, we'd like to think someday vaguely there's leadership in the future. But to me, it's not a goal, it's an emergence of a process. I don't think some of the best students I've seen in my own journey, some of the people I respect the most, at 18 genuinely said, I only want to study or engage with the world or do the activities that will make me a leader. So I think there are 2 or 3 elements that, and I was talking to a lot of young people who also occasionally feel the pressure because the definition of leadership in their minds, willy-nilly, is an individual who has somehow got a commanding presence over many other individuals or much more space or a country or a company. And so I think my thoughts on leadership are that, especially when you're young, but I think it could count for all of us at any age, the first leadership lesson to learn is how to lead yourself. And I'm building on what Naushad had said about knowing yourself. So you know yourself. And the one individual whose journey, trajectory, and life that is entirely up to you is yourself. And I think that's a big enough lesson for people to learn. Secondly, leadership is displayed in individual or solitary spaces as well. Somebody coding AI for you is showing leadership as much in a certain direction as somebody who might be a leader of men. Somebody who is designing in solitary in her studio might be as much a leader as somebody who is heading a school. So I think notions of leadership have to expand and adapt. And obviously, feminist theory is also talking about what a leader looks like. Need not always be the loudest presence in the room, the most commanding. Exceptional people have led from the back. And I think all of that is an urgent requirement in a world, because no matter how much we all think we can project beyond the next 20 years, the truth is we don't know what the planet might do. We don't know what the human beings on the planet might do. We don't know what geopolitics might do. So all the qualities that Naushad and Ranjan have exhibited, I would just add that I think leaders of the future will also need to be free to imagine the nature of leadership itself. It is responsive to need. It is responsive to time. And of course, I'm saying all this in addition to the fact that they'll be collaborative people, that they'll come with a spirit of service, that they will come with a spirit of not just creating impact, but creating positive, sustainable, thoughtful impact. Many people, as we know, have created impact that we wish they hadn't. So I'm really think that the evolution is deeper than just qualities or characteristics, to how you visualize the future you want to build and what role you think you can play constructively in that vision of that future. So this is sounding a little preachy, so I will stop here.
No, I think, all 3 of you have shared so many things which may not be obviously entirely new, and we might have heard about them, bits and pieces here and there. But I think the way all of you have brought them together, I actually agree with on the chat, Dr. Arshi Gohar from Sagar Group of Institutions, Bhopal, saying this is a wonderful perspective on leadership that we've gained in the last few minutes, right? So completely agree with Dr. Arshi on that. It's been very educative for me also to just listen to the perspectives. Also welcoming Pinky Ghosh, lecturer from the government's District Institute of Education and Training, Darang in Assam. Great to see you here. We have a couple of people joining from Bhutan, from Pathankot, Ludhiana. Glad to have you here. So there are a few questions coming into the chat, and there are also a few comments coming in. I'm going to read out one of the comments and transition to my next question for the panelists. So, Madhumita Guha says that curriculum in secondary and higher education needs to be closer and closer to real life compared to what it is today. And I do know that Nayanta University as an organization is in many ways trying to bring curriculum closer to real life and also trying to make curriculum multidisciplinary. So, so I want to transition to my next question to say that given this perspective on leadership, what do you see as the role of a multidisciplinary curriculum, or why is it important to integrate multiple disciplines? And we are all used to saying, I pursued a degree in arts, a degree in science, a degree in commerce, engineering, whatever. Why is it important to integrate multiple disciplines, and why is that such a big cornerstone? Particularly, I'll start with Dr. Ranjan, and since you say that you're building Nayanta University, and it is a multidisciplinary university, so why is this important?
So I think when we talk about leadership, we are talking about people who contribute to the world by solving and addressing the challenges and opportunities faced in the world. The challenges and opportunities that we are facing in the world are increasingly complex. As a simple example, COVID started as a health crisis. It became a social crisis. It became an economic crisis. And the point is, therefore, that there is no single subject lens through which you should tackle a challenge like the COVID challenge. And then if you were to again look at Donald Trump's tariff policy, without commenting on the policy, the challenges for a nation attempting to look at it, it is not purely an economic issue. There is an issue of international relations. There is an issue of impact on industry. So no single lens is enough. This is one. The second is that I think we ought to recognize that the boundaries between subjects are man-made. Physics, chemistry, and biology were defined by a human being. In reality, there are natural phenomena. So we have classified the world for ease of understanding. The danger is that those classifications have become laws in themselves and therefore have prevented us from being able to solve problems. So as the world becomes more complex, we need lenses that are flexible, we need teams that are diverse, and we need the ability to integrate the views of people with multiple lenses. So this is one. The second is that in this disciplinarity, there is something very dangerous that we have created, which is that by the time they enter the 12th standard, many people have concluded, I am not good at creative subjects. I am not good at mathematics. And in most cases, this is not true. It is that those subjects have not been taught and presented in a way where they are taught in a manner that is relatable. So the other danger that is there is that in the absence of exposing people to multiple disciplines before they decide, foundational career choices and subject choices are made by people on the basis of either some peer perception or on the basis of some perceived economic reward, and that economic reward may shift. So one of the things that a multidisciplinary education, whether it be Nayanta or another university, will do, it will say, understand multiple subjects before you hone in on a discipline or area, because you need to have those lenses. You could study sociology, but you need to understand mathematics, number one. Number two, technology or computer science was earlier a vertical. Today, it is a horizontal. That is, every subject that you would study would have some aspect of technology embedded in that. So often you will find that value lies at the intersection between subjects. The third is that, we want to teach subjects in a way that they're relatable for everybody. People grow up creative. The 6-year-old child is very creative. The 6-year-old child is curious. Somewhere in the course of the education process, answers become more important than questions. We want to move it back to questions are more important than answers. And the idea that you don't have to be right-brained or left-brained, you were born whole-brained. You were born as somebody who had both linguistic capabilities and mathematical capabilities. And we want to bring that with. So I think multidisciplinarity is fundamental to realizing human potential. Because what we are doing otherwise is we are forcing talented students to suppress a portion of their capability. And in doing so, we are handicapping the world's ability to solve problems. So that's kind of, yeah.
Oh, very interesting. And my colleague in parallel ran a small poll with the audience where we forced people to pick one choice out of saying that, which of these domains is most crucial for future ready students: arts and culture, science and technology, entrepreneurship, sports and wellness. And we deliberately force people to pick one choice. What's interesting to me is not the fact that, yes, science and technology has received the highest number of votes, but it is not as dominant in this audience, at least, as it might be in the country in general. So I think this is an audience that is probably, sorry, Dr. Anjan, please, you were saying something.
No, I just had a question. I think multiple choice polls have a danger. That we are again forcing choices, right? We're talking multidisciplinarity, but we're saying please choose.
Yeah.
So if I were to ask for a different poll, that everybody who said science and technology, do you think science and technology, people who study science and technology, need to be able to understand and work with people who are different from them and need to be sensitive to the current state of the human condition? That to me is a 90% poll. Okay, the second, do you think artists need to have an appreciation of emerging technologies? It's a simple question, right? So I think you will get both. So the point is, maybe we should change the definition of what a scientist and a technology person is. Does a scientist also have to be a good human being? Is it important? Does a sociologist have to be able to talk to the scientists? Is it important? So those are, I think, some of the questions we are asking. If you force people to choose between careers, it is still true that what has been historically true and where the incentives are leading us is what people will give you.
Yes.
But I think we must move from an either or to an and the value lies in the and. So that's.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I'm going to ask Rastogi to post that question as well, which is how does the audience view multidisciplinary education? But where I was going with my comment, Dr. Ranjan, is that even though science and technology dominated in the poll, for me, it was not the kind of dominance I would have generally guessed. And that to me is actually signaling that this is an audience that is valuing arts and culture, entrepreneurship, sports and wellness. Even sports and wellness got 5% or 7% vote, which is great. And we sort of forced that choice in the first question only to lead up to what you are saying. And I think we will soon see what the audience says about how they view the importance of multidisciplinary education in the next poll. So should the scientist also be able to appreciate some of these things? Should the person studying art be aware of emerging technologies, etc.? Right. So we'll definitely see that in the next poll, and fully aligned with you that it cannot be an either or anymore. And you also explained beautifully how this plays out in the real world and what makes these boundaries somewhat artificial. Any additional comments on this from either Aniha or Naushad before we move forward?
I'll let Aniha go first.
No, I mean, I think my comments at heart are pretty much what was said here. I just also wanted to point out that because formal higher ed may have structured itself around certain models, we almost assume that multidisciplinarity or interdisciplinarity is an alien concept. a lot of the audience seems to be people from education and with access to school children. All of our school education was multidisciplinary. We are already used to the fact that the same individual will study languages, will know more about the earth and the planet and science. And in fact, even the physics, chem, bio stratification, at least in my time, came later on. Earlier, we were just studying things, reading stories, coloring a shape, learning some math, learning some language. So one of the things I think it's important to do is not see this as this alien, newfangled experiment. If anything, to go back to what Ranjan said, it is a way to recognize a whole and complete and well-rounded intelligence. The second thing is that even should a literature student be comfortable with technology? Should a scientist have creative sides to them? Actually, these are not hypothetical questions. It's again our interpretation for ease of teaching, ease of assessment, ability to spread to a large. For instance, some of the most path-breaking and innovative thinkers and scientists, almost all had a creative side to them. From Einstein to Newton to everybody, to Da Vinci. I'm talking really intelligences that emerged out of the box. They were pianists, they were readers, some were authors, some were artists. So this division has not been true. As a humanities student myself, I can assure you with confidence, a lot of humanities students do work with technology. They are quite comfortable with what is happening with AI, or the possibilities of art through technology is something that a lot of art students are exploring. So I think sometimes those of us who see ourselves as parents, as guides, as teachers, as seniors, as supervisors, might actually have to actively work to be the people who open out dimensions instead of limit or codify them. I think we lost Ramya, but that's where I was going to end my comment. And Naushad, if there's anything you want to sort of.
I just two things actually. First, that I think having an appreciation for other disciplines is not antithetical to having great grounding and depth in a particular discipline. So in a sense, one needs both in any good education. You need depth and you need an appreciation, enough breadth to be able to appreciate and bring together what other disciplines can valuably help one address a particular issue. Second, I think we should not see disciplines fixed in time. Too often they've become fixed in time. As Ranjan said earlier on, they become kind of cages instead of ways in which we go deep. Because going deep is so valuable. But sometimes if we just chase the discipline, then we end up being, I think, too narrow in our perspective. So I think, that combination of depth and appreciation of other disciplines first, and then second, not being fixed in time. I mean, let me give you my favorite example is that if you take some names of so-called disciplines, computer science is more technology than science, and biotechnology is more science than technology. But we call them computer science and we call them biotechnology. So, we shouldn't get too hung up with what is part of a particular and inherent to a particular discipline, because it might change over time.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm sorry I dropped out for a minute or so, but heard most of what you said. And the poll results are in. 84% of the audience believes that multidisciplinary education is essential for holistic growth. 13% have said beneficial but challenging, and we'll come to that part of the conversation in a minute. And we do have a few people with a neutral perspective, we have 0% or a fraction preferring the traditional method. So before we come to some of the implementation challenges, I again want to go back to a couple of audience questions and comments. So Simon Coelho has asked about NEP, the new national education policy in India, and where that is taking us. And interestingly, we already have an answer in the audience itself, where Dr. Gohar has said that NEP talks about dissolving these boundaries and creating future-ready citizens in a multidisciplinary environment. So in that sense, NEP as a policy seems to be very well aligned with what we are talking about today, and what Nayanta University is trying to do. Now, at the same time, there could be some risks associated with multidisciplinary education, and I want to relay Shweta Khanna's question to the panel on what are some of these risks. And I think, Naushad, you probably started talking about that a bit in your depth versus breadth comment, but love for the panel to share what they see as potential risks. And we are not talking about implementation risks. We'll come back to that. But if you were able to implement it, what are potential risks?
Can I have a quick response to that? One obvious risk is inadequate depth, right? I mean, one obvious risk is that you learn a little of everything, and in that sense don't have adequate depth in anything. As a counterfactual to that, think of the PhD process. The PhD process sort of requires that at the time when you finish your PhD, on that one subject, you should know more than anyone else in the world. It doesn't matter if the subject is useful or useless. It doesn't matter if the subject is terribly arcane and completely so narrow and so specialized that it's no one else can understand it. It doesn't matter, because on that one subject you have that great mastery, at least for that one point in time, and that mastery that you have then becomes a kind of anchor for you to go into other questions and try to gain deeper understanding in other questions too, because you understood what it means to truly have that depth in one specific topic. So I'm making a plea for depth as a great. Now it isn't the case that multidisciplinarity means necessarily lack of depth, but the danger is that it can. The danger is that if you just do a little of each and you don't turn it into something coherent and cohesive, it can be lack of depth.
And maybe before you come in, Ranjan, as you comment on this, to build on what Naushad said, can you also tell us a little bit about practically what could a curriculum look like to both bring in multiple disciplinary education and avoid this danger? What could the curriculum look like, which will then translate to students being able to adapt to the future, solve real life problems? I mean, somebody on the chat has given a very solid definition. Marianne Ampong Olmoges says that multidisciplinary education brings comprehensive learning by integrating knowledge across disciplines and helps students approach any problem. And for me, that approach any problem is the crux of it. So what does a curriculum that allows this look like?
So I'll talk broadly first, and then I'll come to some very specifics. And I'll use Nayanta as an example. Some of these might be a bit different at Nayanta, but you will see them in other excellent multidisciplinary liberal arts programs, both in India and abroad. So we're not talking Nayanta, we're talking broader. So one is that when you look at this thing of risk and inadequate depth, if you're looking at a 3-year graduation, right, then you're giving that depth for 3 years. If you're looking at what we are recommending, we are saying broadly a 4-year program where you have a foundation which is 1 year plus or minus, where you are exposed to every subject. And then you again have the 3 years. So that is one. Now, within the foundation, you expose them to multiple subjects, but at the end of the first year, you bring it together, saying, how do you use your multiple knowledge of multiple subjects to address water, to address inequality? Then you do your 3 years of specialization, and within that 3 years of specialization, you allow people to gravitate by immersions and internships. In our case, we are saying a 1-month internship in social, corporate, and government. And then you pick a sector and you do a 5-month internship. So you have gone deep into one sector, you have got a deep experience. Now, at the end of your major where you have specialized, we again put the major and the foundation together to say, how do you use these lenses now to add value to a real world problem? So the thing that you can have depth and integration. So that's to me one thing. The second, I think, is a very important lens, which is that pedagogically, if questions are more important than answers, then one of the things you teach in your first year is how do you ask fundamental questions so you can understand any subject from its basic principles. That to me is an attitude to learning. So the largest issue with depth is not in the curriculum. The largest issue with depth is people start winging what you need to do to crack an interview before you start looking at how you understand the subject. And the interview is a natural consequence of depth and not a justifier of depth in itself. So that's a second. The third is teach integrative subjects, teach design thinking, teach systems thinking. These are doing subjects. You don't just learn the theory, you learn the theory by applying it. So having an appropriate blend of knowledge, skills, and attitude and perspectives, I think, is important. The second is, and this is a cliche, and pardon me if anyone gets offended, there is this cliche that says people love to learn but hate to be taught. I think if we can look at our educational institutions where we create learning environments and not just teaching environments, and learning environments not not only in the classroom, they're in extracurricular activities, they're in collaboration, they're in projects, and they're in reflection, they're in conversation. So I think that somewhere on the chat, I saw something about social media. I also think that we have to progressively work with our students to create a relationship where they are in control of their relationship with technology and they are not slaves to technology. Because, I think separate subject, but one of the issues that we do find is that people who are addicted to social media, students, they tend to be more insecure, it leads to mental health issues, etc. And there is a positive side to social media, but a part of our education has to also enable people to develop a positive relationship with emerging technology. So they control the technology and the technology does not control them. Let me stop there.
That's a very, very specific and practical view of how this could play out. Just one quick follow-up question to that from Nannuri Sunita, who talks about the importance of softer aspects like effective communication, emotional intelligence, and you also mentioned, for example, managing your relationship with technology. So does a curriculum like the one at Nayanta or other multidisciplinary programs also look at these softer aspects?
So I think many things, the short answer is yes. But I think the long answer is also this philosophical piece that a lot of our education is about ranking students on a linear scale, right? We either have CGPA or JE rank or CAT percentile. I think the larger idea that every student can be the best at something and that learning journey is specific to every student. I think that's one dimension that will help. Second is communication. I do not think we should restrict communication to a single course. Communication is a longer program. At Nayanta, we are looking at 1.5 years intensive and maybe over the course of the 4 years, and maybe Ania can speak more about that. But where that is coming from is largely that you will have talented students from IB schools. And you will have 70% of India which has done its schooling in the vernacular. When they come into a university, you have to find ways to allow them to have some flexibility in the pace at which they reach a certain level of communication. You want all of them to reach it. And you want to do it in a way that that journey does not impact the self-esteem of any of those students. So I think communication is one. The second thing is a cultural dimension, which every leader of an academic institution and every faculty needs to demonstrate, which is collaboration is more important than competition. And if you demonstrate that collaboration, that's when the social skills come in. Because if you are communicating every student for himself or herself, and there is a number one rank which only one person can have, you are unlikely to get those behaviors and values, right? Listening comes from respect. Listening comes from believing that you have something to. So it's skills, but it is also attitude. It is also values and demonstrated values.
Got it. And just a side, quick side announcement. I think as we had people registering for this Centox sessions, I think some of this for this particular session, some of you also asked, who actually have students in grade 12, also asked, is there, since they saw the Dean of Nayanta there, how to apply. So my colleague has also put the link on the chat, but we'll circulate it to all of you who are part of this session, in case any of your students want to actually apply to the university. I think applications are going on right now for the upcoming cohort. But coming back to the conversation, I want to get into the next theme, which is what are some barriers to implementing such a curriculum. And multiple people from the audience have actually raised this. I'm just going to read out 2-3 of them. Anita Pant says that future mentors or teachers need to be well equipped with the skills needed to train students in this. Aniket Dwivedi says that many schools are teaching in a traditional method and teachers are not well equipped, and we need the right kind of capacity building to do this. Dr. Pratima Khandelwal says how innovation is still not the norm in our academia, and how do we keep both students and teachers motivated. So we also did a quick audience poll on what is the biggest barrier. Interestingly, the poll has put curriculum as the biggest barrier, which we already talked about briefly, and Dr. Ranjan took us through what the curriculum could look like. And of course, for a lot of the school teachers joining us, I'm sure they're feeling constrained by curriculum in the school today. But let's come to one of the other barriers which has come up, which is the surrounding resources, training of teachers, training of faculty members, resources. Any thoughts maybe from Aniha as Dean of the undergraduate program at your university? What are some ideas on how can we address these implementation barriers?
One is, I think a lot of the barriers come in our effort and our intent. So I think one is to recognize that it is possible to overcome them and to find people who are, I think people are a core aspect of a multidisciplinary education. The other thing is something that actually a school teacher had once said to me when I was talking to them about, innovations in teaching, etc. And they said, no matter what you try and what you do, in some, finally, people teach to the assessment. And I found that an extremely insightful comment, which is the other reason, not just at Nayanta, but at other multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary work, to have enough freedom in the modes of assessment. Because no matter how innovative a teacher wants to be, if at the end of it, they have to write just one board exam, or like we had in our time in public universities, one big written paper over 3 hours, whether we like it or not, both students and teachers start tailoring their approach or engagement or experimentation with a subject to what might finally achieve success in the exam. So I think whether we recognize it or not, I agree with some of what the poll showed up. Not the curriculum only per se, but also what happens at the end of delivering that curriculum. I also saw in the chat box some questions about students with different abilities, both visible and invisible disabilities, or multiple intelligences. So I think the curriculum needs to be both broad and varied enough with the depth that Naushad spoke of, but so do the models of assessment. So I'm taking forward Ranjan's point about pedagogy to say pedagogy automatically is more innovative. If there is freedom in how somebody might want to assess whether, for instance, if there's a design thinking course, the model of assessment might be collaborative. It might automatically have wedded into its pedagogic and assessment model teamwork and critical thinking and innovation and ideation. I also see in a lot of comments this assumption that teachers are not innovative at all, or that somehow some training will suddenly lead to a burst of innovation. But in my experience, I think barriers come on 3 or 4 fronts. One is in our imagination. The second is every teacher will need to, in some ways, almost be a stronger student than the students, because there'll be a constant upgrading of what you know, what resources are available to you, who else you can collaborate with to co-teach a course, even if all of it is not your area of skill, and so on and so forth. I think the third barrier is in the structures of curriculum and assessment. And if we overcome those, and maybe Naushad could actually speak at a bigger, higher level about the barriers in establishing such institutions or thinking about it, then of course I think there are the more practical, logistical, financial or collaborative barriers. So I hope this answers some element of this question.
Thanks for that, Ania. Very well said. And just like you, if I may add a comment from my side, just like you said, assessments play a very important role in how students learn. At Center, we similarly find that what teachers are assessed and motivated on plays a very important role in how teachers learn. And therefore, the more we are able to certify a teacher's ability to drive multidisciplinary education and create value for that with employers. So if an employer is willing to pay higher salary, speed track career growth, etc., for a teacher who is able to deliver this kind of education, then we do find that the motivation is there for teachers to also build those skills. So I think that same thing we find it getting extrapolated to all professionals, not just teachers. I think very often we don't put teachers in the same category as other professionals, and as Center, I think that's one of our big thrusts, to treat this as a profession and reward the right competencies, one of them being the ability to deliver multidisciplinary education. So anyway, I think you rightly handed over to Naushad to say, at an institutional level, what are a couple of challenges, and after that, I'm going to ask you for a few nuggets of advice for the teachers as well as parents here, all of you. But maybe after Naushad completes.
Sure. So very, very quickly, I'll give you I'll give you a real challenge, and then I'll give you a sort of amusing challenge that we came up with as we've been going through the registration process for the university. So the real challenge, if you like, is cost, right? It's if you really want to do multidisciplinary teaching well, multidisciplinary learning and experiencing and so on well, it can be more expensive because of the way in which we're thinking, at least so far, of how it's done. The best way in which it's done is by putting faculty in the same classroom from 2 disciplines or more for a particular subject. But for it to be truly multidisciplinary, it's not good enough for 2 faculty to teach a class and where one faculty shows up for certain days and the other faculty member shows up for the other days. They have to both be there all the time and comment on what the other person is saying with the perspective of their discipline on what the other person has said with perspective from her discipline. So it needs that constant collaboration. That makes it more expensive. because it means that then a class is being taught by 2 faculty instead of by 1. Yeah. So that's a very real institutional barrier to why multidisciplinary education is difficult to do, because of that very particular constraint. The more amusing sort of one is that as we have set about setting up Nayanta University, in the registration process, what we've been saying is that, look, we will start without departments, because departments and disciplines sort of match, right? So we said, to begin with, we won't have departments, because once you have departments, to get rid of the departments later on is almost impossible. You can always add departments later on. So to start with, no departments. It's been really difficult to get that point across as a part of the regulatory process, because the regulatory process, the first question that you get is how many faculty in each department. And if you don't have departments, you can't answer that question. So it's and we've gone over that a few times with the authorities, and they've now, I think, been quite convinced that we're right to start the way we are. But it wasn't. It needed constant explaining that, look, we don't have departments, so we can't tell you how many faculty in each department.
Yeah. No, very interesting. And your first point about the need for multiple faculty and the cost associated with that, it also resonates with one of the comments on the chat by Geeta Chauhan, who talks about time constraint as a potential barrier, and this point about multiple faculty, etc., sort of comes in there. I'm also going to request my colleagues, since we are at 6 p.m. Quick question to the panel: do you have a couple of minutes for one last question? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, but meanwhile, since we are at 6 p.m., I'm requesting my colleague to put the code of the webinar in the chat. So that those who need to leave due to a back-end constraint can continue doing that. And meanwhile, my closing question to the panel, for teachers as well as parents who are trying to guide a student who has multiple interests. So let's say the student is interested in science and arts and sports and so on. Are there some nuggets of advice from your side on how the teacher or parent should think about guiding this student? And before you answer, just 2 quick announcements for the audience. When you fill the feedback form, feel free to let us know if you want any further information from Nayanta University. If so, we'll share your details for them to send you information. And second thing, for the teachers here, please feel free to share the webinar link with students and parents in your circles, since this is a lot about secondary students and senior secondary students and their parents in terms of how they think about these choices. But back to the panel for your quick advice for us.
Ranjan, do you want to go first?
I can try to go first. I had actually, Ramya, if I could, can I talk generally to teachers a little more broadly in terms of advice to teachers, and then I'll ask the specific question? Because
Yeah,
I'm speaking to the audience. So,
Absolutely.
I'm just relating to challenges. So, one thing I believe is that if you look at great teachers and you look at great teaching moments which have been transformative, often it is a one-on-one conversation with a student outside the classroom. So I think a big part of a teacher's job is to create an environment of approachability where a student can talk to you outside the classroom. So I think that would be my first thing. The second thing, which is perhaps more an advice to a principal, and we have some great school principals. There's a lot I've learned in the last 3 months from my engagement with school principals, is simply tell teachers this simple thing: you do not have to finish the syllabus. I think it's one of the biggest issues. Students have to learn the syllabus. This does not mean that every component of the syllabus has to be covered in the classroom. The classroom is used for those subjects where students need to engage, where they need to ask. So what is self-learned and what is taught, and the idea that every subject does not have to be covered in the syllabus, and the principal empowering the teacher with this would be one big thing. The thing for the parent and the teacher, I think, is that one is creating that environment where students can really have a conversation. And the second is, do not impose the barrier of economic reward too early in the choice of career. Let students find things they are passionate about. Let them chase excellence. Money will be a happy side effect of excellence. So I think that is, have enough confidence in your children to let them chase their passions and let them discover their passions. Also, do not put pressure. I mean, if somebody says, I don't know what I want to do, that is a positive, that's not a negative. That is a child who has multiple talents. So I think, the children who have it all figured out at the 10th standard on what they're going to do for the next 20 years, a lot of that confidence is fake. A lot of that confidence, and that confidence is a problem, because the worst thing that can happen is that they can actually earn the money but hate what they're doing. And you wouldn't want to wish that on your child. So I think having that faith in the child for self-discovery, having a conversation which is truly two-way, and creating greater awareness of the options that are available. The country has moved beyond engineering, chartered accountancy, and medicine. We all need to move beyond that as options for the future of our children, but maybe more for the future of our country.
Ania?
Very, very beautifully put. Very beautifully put, Ranjan. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. I hate following after Ranjan because he encapsulates ideas very well. I'm by nature not somebody who gives advice, because I think there's such a diversity of students, parents, and teachers. But there are 2 or 3 things that maybe you could consider. One is, if kids express interest in multiple areas or disciplines, many people react with fear. What, you're going to make a career out of music? Kya hoga? You will not make money, etc., etc. I think what I have found in, and we are, some of us are parents here in this conversation as well as teachers. I think what I have discovered is, both with students or with your own child, you let them explore that option. I think all of us know that curiosity leads young people down many lines, but over time they wind up sticking to the 2 or 3 things that are probably either their skills or their passion, or ideally both. And life and time and maturity itself allows students to pick up and abandon various elements. I think all of us at some point may have tried some musical instrument. All of us may have tried reading something because somebody recommended it as good reading. Some of us have tried picking up new sport. Some of us, who are not even children, may be picking up yoga at a later age in life. Over time, there are things we stick with, and there are things we outgrow or abandon or don't make time for, or couldn't find the best teacher. So I actually believe reality in itself is a great selector of what particular interests or passions of yours or theirs your children will follow. And therefore, it's not something one has to stress out about. The second piece is very meaningful conversations I've had with students who have come to alter the directions that they already had in undergrad or in high school and what they want to do, as well as to deal with the whole idea of I'm passionate about or I love something. What has been meaningful for me, I can share for you, is also which are passions that one should pursue all the way down into being professional careers, on which you put the burden of earning and growth and all those things. and that there are other passions that you can pursue without them necessarily being your career. It is not an either or way of being in life. There are many subjects that I did not continue to study formally, but I'm an avid reader of those subjects. 25 years after those subjects were done as an official name on my transcript. And that is true of most of us. Secondly, parents and teachers, and not secondly, this is thirdly, and my last point. Usually, as a parent at the dinner table, when we are in conversations with our children, same with teachers in one on one conversations, it's usually asking the child. We're constantly putting the student or the child on the spot. What did you do in school today? What did you learn? What grades did you earn for it? What happened with your friends? I have observed that allowing students to engage with multiple disciplines and multiple interests came where parents also talked about what they had done. That there is not just one member of the family by virtue of being younger, by virtue of being a student, who is reflecting on their day or their life or what they hope to do next. And some of the best teaching moments from me, from faculty as well as from parents, came when they talked about their careers, their jobs, some challenges they faced, something interesting that happened at work. And of course, some parents actually take their kids to work from time to time to give them a sense of a working atmosphere or the domain they work in. I actually believe that's been excellent for a lot of students whose parents would talk about what working life is like or challenges, talk about their own day, and not just put the student on the spot to be answerable, accountable, and clear thinking at 17, while not ourselves putting ourselves on the spot for what's happening with our journey of exploration, learning, growth, discovering career pathways. Because I'm sure if I took a poll with engineering students, 50% of them are not engineers today, even though they did an engineering undergrad or postgrad degree. They have all ventured into other directions. So our own journeys, our own vulnerabilities, our own journeys of exploration have been extremely revealing and extremely inspiring to young people to know how to make sense of multiple interests they might have. So that's what I think I would say on the subject. Naushad?
Sure. So
And just before Naushad goes ahead, I just want to quickly tell the audience that there have been a couple of changes in the Center app, and you may not be tracking it. The feedback form is now in the My Learning section. It is in the My Learning section, and it is there only for the people who registered for the session. So it is possible you are attending the session without registering, which is okay. But to fill the feedback form, you need to have registered, and it is there in the My Learning section. So, and I would also request that in case you are still not able to find it, you can please write to team@center.org, because we still have people commenting on the content of the session, which I'm finding a little hard to follow with the feedback link questions. If you don't mind. So, Naushad, over to you.
Sure. So I'll just make two comments about things that Ania and Ranjan said, that and how we're trying to implement them at Nayanta. So the point on not deciding things right away and not being under pressure to pick until you understand a discipline, and second, the point on passion. Yeah? So what we're trying to do at Nayanta, we've sort of said that, look, in the first year, not only are you not expected to pick your major, you can't, right? So there'll be no scope for the student to say they can select their major in their head, but there's no scope for the student to pick their major in the first year. Sometime between the first and the second year, the end of the first and the second year, they have to decide what major they wish to pick, right? Major, combination of majors, major and minor, whatever. And the reason we're doing that is because we want them to go through the foundation program before they decide, because that will give them an idea of different disciplines. And when they have an idea of different disciplines, then they will have a better sense of what really has meaning to them. So it should help them discover then, second point now, their passion. Now, how do you then pursue your passion? And I think Ania's point about distinguishing between what you do with a passion. Do you pursue a passion as your career, or do you pursue a passion as a really serious hobby that gives you sustenance and delight through your life? Both are perfectly good ways of pursuing passion. So it's what we're trying to do at Nayanta to help that. The first bit about the career is we're saying that, look, as a student, don't worry about employment opportunities. If you decide to study history, or if you decide to study literature, we will figure out how we can get you attractive employment opportunities, right? If you're good and if you're passionate about a subject, it almost doesn't matter what the subject is. I mean, I can say, I ended up doing my bachelor's, master's, and PhD in industrial engineering. The amount of industrial engineering I have actually done in my career is negligible. Negligible, right? I had, in my undergraduate degree, I also had, it was industrial engineering and history. The amount of history I've done in my career has been, to some extent, significant. So, right? So the fact that I had a PhD in something doesn't mean that that's what you end up actually practicing. So I think picking something that you're really passionate about, and then enabling the student to have attractive career opportunities regardless of what they've picked as their subject. That's one of the pieces that we're trying to build in. So to reassure parents and students that, okay, if I study English literature, I will get a job and I'll get an attractive job.
Thank you so much. These are amazing inputs, and I can clearly see from all the comments on the chat that people are finding the session extremely educative for everybody. And I want to also go back to Ranjan's very practical inputs for teachers in terms of how you can implement some of this in a classroom, even in school. That the syllabus is there, the curriculum is there, but not every part of the curriculum needs to be covered in the same way. There were also some questions in the chat on the role of technology, the role of AI. Did not want to get into that because that's another whole topic in itself, and we wouldn't have time to do justice to it. But as a quick comment, based on what you said, Ranjan, the role of technology very often can be in a bit of that self-paced learning, whereas the things that need engagement is what the classroom space and time can be used for. So very practical inputs there, and of course on how we guide students in secondary and senior secondary, particularly the students who are not faking confidence but saying I don't know. How do we guide them? How do we support them? And how do we look at multidisciplinary option education as a real option for them? So with that, a big thank you to all the panelists, and I'm handing over to my colleague Rastogi, who will very quickly take you through how to fill the feedback form in the new version of Centox, which is clearly a topic of much interest in the last 5-10 minutes. So Rastogi will quickly take you through how to fill the feedback form in the new version of Centox. And meanwhile, thank you again to our panelists. Session will be available. Please feel free to share it with colleagues and parents.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
A very good evening, everyone. I see a lot of comments coming in regarding this one. Such an interesting session we had. I hope you had taken all the advantage of this session in this one. So I'm just going to take a couple of questions, and then also on how to fill the feedback form. I see a lot of new participants who have joined in for today's session. So yes, in 2024, in the beginning of the 2024, we used to share a manual feedback form. We have moved and upgraded ourselves and kept the feedback form in the center app. Now, I'll just walk you through how to fill the feedback form. Before that, I just want to give you an information that the session was extended, and we usually share the feedback form once the session concludes. So, so we have timed it till 6:30. Please be patient. We will share the feedback form. There is no need to panic. If there are any further issue on downloading the feedback, on filling the feedback form and getting the record of participation, please write to us at team@center.org. Meanwhile, I'll just walk you through how to fill the feedback form for people who are new. Where if you have registered through the session earlier, you will also find that. Just give me a minute. Yes, you'll find the session in My Learning part of it. The button would have changed to submit feedback at the end of the session, which will be around 6:30 today. Once you press the button, you can move on to yes. So submit feedback. Please fill up the 4-digit code that is shared below. That is 4034. Give us the session feedback. And also for this session, if you are interested to know more about Nayanta University, their application process, please write to us in the feedback, and we would connect you with them to get more information. Yes, we have shared a lot of other information in the content as well. And post you fill the feedback form. Please post it up. So the digit codes with your name, email ID, along with the feedback on the details, and you can post it up. Once you post it up, yes, you can directly download the record of participation for the session, this session particularly. So that will be done. So the session was timed to 5 to 6:30. Again, there is no need to panic. The feedback form is available in the center app. For people who have joined earlier, it's the same process as that. And for people who have joined new, I would suggest you that you get the center app, and I'll walk you through it again. So if you have registered for the webinar, the join button would have changed to submit feedback button by 6:30. So in the submit feedback button, please enter your details, the webinar code that is given over there, 4034. Please enter the details. Repeating again, please give the feedback regarding the details. And if you're interested in knowing more about Nayanta University, let us know. Please write to us. The feedback, the 4-digit code is 4034. Yes. There are a lot of teachers who are helping me out. Yes, it is the 6:30. Thank you so much, Varsha ma'am. And then once you fill the feedback form, please download the record of participation. It is easily available. Yes, Rosalie ma'am, I get it. You will be getting the feedback form around 6:30. This session was for 5 to 6:30 p.m. and usually the feedback form is available at the end of the session. Yes, thank you, ma'am. Rosalind, ma'am, the feedback form will be shown at 6:30 p.m. I hope, the way to fill the feedback form is clear. Can I get a thumbs up on that? So that we all wait for it. And I'll just keep this PPT up in front, just in case, if you're joining in or if you're getting confused somewhere, I'll just let this video run. Yeah, awesome. Twinkle Ma'am says awesome. Please let us know what you think about this session as well. We would really appreciate that. It will be shown in the center app, Dipti Ma'am. So Madhuri Dayal Ma'am says practical or hands-on experience matters. The feedback form will be open post 6:30 till midnight, so you can fill the feedback form. Ranak ma'am asked till what time it will be open. So 6:30 it will open up, as that is the conclusion of today's session, and then it will come up. If you have registered, then it will come in my learning session. So you, in order to fill the feedback form, I hope you have registered for the session. Excellent, thank you. So just thank you all for joining in. We will keep this video, for your support till 6:30, and we will be reading your comments in. And just in case post 6:30, you're still not able to see it, please write to us at team@centa.org, and we'll be happy to be assisting you with this. Yes, thank you so much. Good night, everyone.